Princess Anne reflects on 7 decades in the royal spotlight, and she may have more in common with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle than you think.
Royal restraint was shattered overnight when Princess Anne reportedly pushed back after Meghan's public warning sent shockwaves through the monarchy. What looked like a bold move suddenly flipped, as insiders whispered of swift responses, quiet authority, and consequences no one predicted. Cameras rolled, commentators scrambled, and timelines filled with speculation as the narrative turned on its head. So, was this a calculated stand from the crown's most formidable royal, or a misread moment that ignited an unexpected backlash, reshaping alliances and power in ways few saw coming? A high-stakes clash in the palace. The drama begins not with whispers behind closed doors, but with a direct, audacious clash that shook the palace to its core. According to insiders familiar with the inner workings of the royal household, Meghan Markle allegedly made a calculated attempt to pressure the royal family into granting her renewed privileges and public recognition. This was not a casual comment or a fleeting request. It was a full-scale maneuver, carefully designed to manipulate perception and regain influence over an institution she had once been a part of. At the heart of this high-stakes strategy was a video, one that palace sources claim was falsified with remarkable sophistication. The footage appeared to implicate Lady Louise Windsor, the young and discreet granddaughter of the monarch, and her longtime partner in a compromising situation. For those watching from the outside, it might have looked like a minor scandal or a simple leak, but behind the palace walls, it was understood as an overt attempt to apply pressure. A digital weapon aimed at destabilizing the reputation of a family member entirely removed from the center of the conflict. What makes this confrontation so extraordinary is that it was never just a personal disagreement or a misunderstanding. It was, in every sense, a challenge to the very authority and integrity of the monarchy itself. The palace, accustomed to protocol, tradition, and careful diplomacy, suddenly found itself facing a move that felt unprecedented. A modern threat executed not with words alone, but through media and the digital manipulation of evidence. The potential ramifications were immense. A young royal, with no public voice in this conflict, could have been publicly undermined, and a carefully built family legacy risked being distorted for personal gain. In the midst of this unfolding storm, one figure stepped forward decisively: Princess Anne. Known for her meticulous, disciplined approach and her relative distance from palace politics, she immediately recognized the gravity of the situation. While others might have hesitated or sought private negotiation, Anne acted swiftly, mobilizing legal, intelligence, and digital forensic teams to investigate and counter the threat. She understood that this was not merely about reputation or headlines, it was about protecting the institution itself, ensuring that no one, regardless of status, could exploit fear, media, or technology to manipulate the royal family. The clash set the tone for what would become a full-scale counteroffensive, a test of loyalty, strategy, and resolve that demonstrated just how seriously the palace takes any attempt at coercion. In that moment, it became clear this was not a typical feud, and Princess Anne's intervention would be the first decisive move in a battle where perception, power, and the integrity of the monarchy were all on the line. Meghan Markle's attempt to pressure the royal family with a calculated threat was met with Princess Anne's swift and decisive response. But what drove Meghan to challenge the institution so directly? Was she trying to leverage royal sympathy for her own gain? And what happens when such a move is met with a firm, unwavering response? Let's find out. Pressure. Behind the curtain. Long before any public threats came to light, the signs of trouble were already impossible to ignore. Behind the polished photos and carefully staged appearances, cracks were forming in Meghan Markle's public and professional world. Key commercial partnerships, once a steady source of influence and income, were beginning to weaken. Deals that had seemed unshakable were now faltering, as executives and brand managers grew wary of associating with a name that had started to attract controversy rather than admiration. At the same time, several senior advisors, those trusted confidants who had guided strategy and decisions, quietly stepped away, signaling internal concern and eroding the support structure Meghan relied on. Even her reputation in the public eye, a cornerstone of her influence, was starting to show signs of strain. Insiders note that social media metrics, fan sentiment, and media coverage were beginning to shift in ways that no amount of public relations could fully reverse. Each misstep, each controversial story seemed amplified under the relentless spotlight, and the pressure was mounting from all sides. Contractual obligations demanded attention, deadlines loomed, and financial stakes rose higher by the day. Every brand, every deal, and every media opportunity came with an implicit expectation: maintain control, tell a compelling story, and secure influence before it slipped away. Faced with this growing pressure, sources suggest that Meghan sought to engineer a dramatic narrative shift, a high-stakes move intended to reassert control and stabilize her fading influence. But what was meant to regain leverage instead revealed vulnerability. The very act of attempting to manufacture a comeback, insiders say, made the cracks even more visible. Public actions, carefully calculated to demonstrate strength, instead exposed fragility, turning strategic ambition into a lightning rod for scrutiny. Media commentators, brand executives, and even palace insiders began to scrutinize every move with heightened attention, sensing that a shift in momentum was underway. What might have been intended as a display of power, an effort to reclaim the initiative and reassert influence, quickly became something else entirely, a catalyst for resistance. The palace and other institutional forces responded with precision, interpreting the signals not as negotiation, but as pressure. The more Meghan pushed to regain relevance and control, the more entrenched the opposition became. Each calculated step toward asserting dominance unintentionally accelerated scrutiny and tightened the walls of institutional response around her. In short, the seeds of the crisis were planted long before any overt action. The warning lights had been flashing for months: falling deals, departing advisors, and eroding confidence. The attempt to reclaim power did not restore stability. Instead, it exposed vulnerability, heightened observation, and set the stage for the dramatic confrontation that would soon unfold at the heart of the royal family. Meghan fears her brand is weakening and tries to leverage the institution's strength to regain her relevance. But it backfired. Was she able to gain public sympathy as she hoped, or did she face a devastating response from her partnerships? Now let's delve into how Meghan's Netflix deal collapsed. A quiet industry verdict. Beyond the ornate walls of the palace, the fallout from the royal confrontation began to ripple through spaces where influence and image hold ultimate value: the global entertainment industry. Meghan Markle's once celebrated partnership with Netflix, valued at an eye-watering £100 million, quietly unraveled. The streaming giant, after careful deliberation, chose not to renew the contract when it expired. There was no grand announcement. No public statement or press release framed the split. There was only deliberate silence. A quiet but unmistakable message that reverberated far beyond the world of streaming. Industry insiders described the separation as mutually acknowledged in appearance, but resolutely one-sided in effect. While publicly framed as cordial and professional, the decision behind closed doors carried weighty implications. For Netflix, the calculation was clear and uncompromising. Reputational volatility, no matter how glamorous or high-profile, is a liability that cannot be sustained over the long term. High-stakes storytelling, brand prestige, and viewer trust matter more than headlines or flash-in-the-pan publicity. And Meghan's unfolding public drama, once a source of curiosity and fascination, had, in the eyes of corporate decision-makers, become a liability too potent to ignore. The quiet spoke volumes, louder than any official statement ever could. In a world obsessed with image, stories, and appearances, silence became a message in itself. It hinted at careful avoidance, a deliberate choice to keep prominent corporate names away from controversy, and a clear, unspoken verdict on Meghan's brand at its most exposed. Every pause, every unsaid word carried weight, signaling judgment and caution without a single announcement. What was once a partnership built on potential storytelling, star power, and mutual amplification now become a case study in caution. Netflix's withdrawal echoed a wider industry principle. When reputational risks outweigh returns, the stakes shift from ambition to preservation. As the royal institution fortified itself behind layers of legal, strategic, and familial unity, the entertainment sector responded in kind. Decisions were made with precision, influence was wielded subtly, and no spectacle was required to assert control. The end result was clear. The repercussions of the attempted media threat had moved far beyond palace politics. They had crossed into boardrooms, executive suites, and contractual negotiations, leaving lasting consequences for how Meghan's brand would be perceived, leveraged, and valued moving forward. What began as a high-stakes confrontation over privilege and perception had become a broader lesson in the inescapable consequences of public actions. In both the royal sphere and the world of global media, the message was undeniable. Misjudged power, when challenged decisively, can ripple far beyond its original stage, and its echoes are felt in silence, in absence, and in the quiet recalibration of influence. The Netflix deal was terminated as the royal institution closed ranks against Meghan. But what steps were taken to verify the threats she was making against the family? Could she have been right, or was she trying to capitalize on the wrong leverage? Let's uncover the details. The ultimatum strategy. According to sources close to the legal teams involved, the strategy was nothing short of calculated and unnerving. What had been presented as a set of requests or demands was, in reality, a carefully crafted pressure play. The instructions were clear: restore security access, reinstate long-held patronages, and publicly defend reputation. On the surface, these demands might have seemed like a routine request for acknowledgement or procedural support. But hidden beneath was an unmistakable warning. If the royal family did not comply, material that could tarnish a young royal's image would be released. The supposed evidence at the center of the threat was a video, one that initially looked authentic enough to unsettle even seasoned observers. At first glance, it had the hallmarks of reality: familiar faces, plausible scenarios, and convincingly recorded footage. Yet as forensic experts and digital analysts examined it more closely, the truth became evident. The video had been engineered to deceive. Frames were manipulated, sequences altered, and subtle digital markers revealed that what viewers saw could not be trusted. What may have seemed like a simple recording was, in fact, a sophisticated deepfake designed to mislead the eye, planting seeds of doubt rather than delivering proof. The cunning and risk of the plan wasn't in showing actual wrongdoing, but in planting doubt. By presenting content that looked convincing, those behind it aimed to make the royal family pause, hesitate, and second-guess themselves. Just a hint of suspicion, just enough uncertainty, could force a reaction, disrupt carefully maintained routines, or even sway public opinion. It wasn't merely a digital attack, it was psychological warfare. Instead of a direct strike, the tactic relied on suggestion and implication, using ambiguity as a weapon to influence behavior, manipulate perception, and quietly unsettle a family trained to withstand scandal. Insiders revealed that the move was anything but impulsive or emotional. It was a carefully crafted plan, designed to manipulate fear, uncertainty, and the caution of those entrusted with safeguarding the royal family. By focusing on a young, private member, someone with little public voice, no political power, and minimal influence, the scheme was calculated to maximize impact while minimizing immediate accountability. Every detail was meant to unsettle, to provoke hesitation, and to test boundaries. The stakes were immense, the moral lines hazy, and the potential fallout extensive, sending shockwaves through both the family and anyone watching the unfolding drama. Ultimately, the tactic was meant to be a lever, a way to regain control, command attention, and assert influence over the monarchy through carefully constructed pressure. But its true power came from the shadows, from the ability to cast doubt without proof, to unsettle without direct accusation, and to force a reaction where none might have been necessary. It was a digital gambit, a psychological trap, and a direct test of the royal family's resilience and resolve. It was clear that Meghan's threat against the royal institution was misguided. But who exactly in the royal family was her target, and how was that person protected? Now, let's unravel who became the focus of this high-stakes royal power struggle. When the target became clear, amid the swirling tension and calculated moves, the human cost of the conflict quickly became impossible to ignore. At the center of the storm stood Lady Louise Windsor, a young woman known for her quiet demeanor, discretion, and unwavering commitment to privacy. She had carefully navigated life in the public eye with grace, avoiding drama, speculation, or controversy. Yet despite her deliberate efforts to remain a background figure, she suddenly found herself thrust into a maelstrom of power, influence, and calculated media pressure, an arena she had never chosen to enter and had no desire to engage with. As the events unfolded, it became painfully clear that Louise was not merely a witness to the tension. She was, in fact, a primary target. Her family, sensing the danger, immediately moved to shield her from exposure and protect her from the potentially devastating fallout. Public engagements were cancelled, social media accounts went dark, and appearances that had been planned for months were quietly postponed. The royal household's priority shifted from ceremonial schedules and protocol to safeguarding the emotional and reputational well-being of a young woman caught in the crossfire. What outsiders initially interpreted as another headline-grabbing feud between prominent royal figures quickly revealed a more sinister truth. This was no ordinary clash of personalities or policy disagreements. The attack was precise, deliberate, and aimed squarely at undermining the reputation of someone entirely innocent in the unfolding drama. Lady Louise, with no political ambitions, no strategic agenda, and no voice in the disputes surrounding her, had become a pawn in a high-stakes contest for influence and leverage. Insiders described the scene as quietly devastating. Louise, accustomed to discretion and calm, was suddenly navigating a landscape where private moments and personal associations were twisted into tools for manipulation. The attempt to manipulate her image was subtle yet insidious, designed to create doubt, tension, and distraction, not just for her, but for the institution she represented by mere association. Her withdrawal from the public eye was not a retreat out of fear, but a strategic necessity to preserve dignity, maintain privacy, and prevent the conflict from escalating further. In truth, this was a defining moment not only for Lady Louise, but for the monarchy itself. It highlighted the fragility of individual reputations when exposed to the machinery of media manipulation and power plays. It demonstrated the lengths to which external forces might go to exploit even the most discreet members of the royal family for personal gain. And it set the stage for a decisive institutional response, one that would not only protect Louise, but reaffirm the boundaries of respect, loyalty, and justice within the royal household. Lady Louise's forced visibility, though unwanted, would ultimately underscore her resilience, the steadfastness of her family, and the enduring strength of an institution unwilling to allow its youngest members to become collateral damage in a battle they did not choose. Lady Louise became the center of Meghan's threat and was protected accordingly. But how exactly was she safeguarded? Was the king directly involved, or was it handled solely by a royal insider? Now, let's uncover how the royal matriarch exposed the deception and shut down this high-stakes threat. Princess Anne draws the line. This is the moment where the entire saga shifted, where the story pivoted from uncertainty to decisive action. Princess Anne, widely recognized for her calm authority and unflinching sense of duty, stepped forward and immediately took command. Unlike many who might have hesitated, she acted with precision and clarity. Without fanfare or public declaration, she summoned an elite team of experts, legal strategists, intelligence operatives, and digital forensics specialists tasked with dissecting every detail of the alleged threat. The objective was simple but monumental: determine the truth, protect the family, and ensure that no attempt at manipulation could succeed. The team's investigation quickly uncovered a labyrinth of deception. Metadata anomalies within the video footage indicated that the timeline of events had been deliberately manipulated. Digital traces showed evidence of synthetic editing, carefully inserted frames, subtle distortions, and manipulated audio designed to appear authentic at first glance. Independent analysts corroborated the findings, confirming that the material had been engineered with the intent to deceive and destabilize. Each discovery dismantled the narrative piece by piece, revealing that what had initially seemed credible was, in reality, an intricate web of falsehoods. With these findings in hand, Princess Anne moved decisively. She presented the evidence to the king, who immediately authorized the activation of emergency protocols reserved for the most serious threats to the monarchy's integrity. These measures were far from symbolic. They encompassed legal maneuvers across multiple jurisdictions, rapid response digital containment, and strategic communication plans designed to preempt media speculation. Every action conveyed one unmistakable message: coercion and intimidation would not succeed, and any attempt to manipulate the reputation of a royal family member, especially a young one, would be met with unyielding resistance. The sheer decisiveness of Princess Anne's response reverberated far beyond the palace walls. Inside, aides and advisors quickly realized that her intervention had established a new benchmark for handling crises: swift, calculated, and unyielding. Every move was precise, leaving no room for hesitation or error. Outside the royal household, the message was equally clear. The monarchy would protect its members, their reputations, and the institution itself at all costs. No threat would be tolerated, no ambiguity accepted, and no negotiation allowed under pressure. Princess Anne's actions made one thing unmistakably clear: the crown does not bend, compromise, or falter. This moment underscored a profound principle. The monarchy's strength lies not only in tradition and ceremony, but in its ability to act decisively when tested. Princess Anne's leadership demonstrated that when an institution is confronted with attempts at manipulation, the response must be absolute, strategic, and protective. The message was clear: those who seek to destabilize the royal family will find no weakness here, especially when the target is one of its youngest and most vulnerable members. With the support of the king, Princess Anne successfully protected the young royal from Meghan's threat. But what ripple effects did the monarch's action have on Meghan? And did it create division within the monarchy, or did it ultimately strengthen their unity? Let's find out. The backfire and the new reality. As the legal wheels began to turn, the ripple effects across media platforms and corporate sponsors were immediate and unmistakable. Streaming services paused content, social media channels flagged questionable material, and corporate partners quietly reassessed their alliances. The pressure created a climate of uncertainty for those attempting to exploit the scandal, and the carefully constructed narrative that had been intended to intimidate and manipulate suddenly began to unravel. What had been designed as a strategic offensive now teetered on the edge of collapse. Amid the turmoil, the royal family responded with calm precision, showing a unity that completely overshadowed the attempted disruption. There were no flashy statements, public drama, or sensational headlines. Only quiet, deliberate action. Every move was measured, coordinated, and purposeful. At the heart of it stood Princess Anne, unwavering and firm, guiding the family with authority, strategy, and clear intent. Her decisive stance communicated a powerful message to all. Attempts to manipulate, intimidate, or deceive the monarchy would not succeed. The institution's strength lay not in spectacle, but in discipline, presence, and an unshakable commitment to integrity. Princess Catherine played a crucial supporting role, reinforcing the institutional framework that had been mobilized. Her interventions were both strategic and protective, ensuring that the family's narrative remained coherent, credible, and beyond manipulation. Meanwhile, Duchess Sophie spoke with the voice of a mother, blending strength with compassion, drawing a line that no external pressure could cross. Her involvement emphasized that this was not merely about policy or protocol, it was about defending those under her care. The combined effect of these three women's leadership created an unbreakable shield around Lady Louise, who had become the inadvertent focal point of a high-stakes confrontation. The so-called campaign of intimidation that once seemed unstoppable quickly unraveled. What was meant to shock and destabilize the royal family collapsed as independent experts revealed the footage was falsified and credibility crumbled. Corporate sponsors quietly withdrew, media platforms paused, and online speculation lost steam. Instead of creating scandal, the attempt only highlighted the miscalculations of its orchestrators, leaving them exposed and isolated. Amid the chaos, Lady Louise, who had remained private and composed throughout, emerged not weakened, but stronger than ever, a quiet symbol of resilience and dignity in the face of calculated attacks. Her experience, initially one of forced withdrawal and protection, became a springboard for empowerment. With support from Anne, Catherine, and Sophie, she reclaimed her agency and public presence. In the aftermath, she stepped forward as an advocate for digital ethics and media integrity, championing responsibility, accountability, and truth in an era where misinformation can spread like wildfire. What began as an attempted attack on her reputation ultimately transformed into a story of resilience, strategic defense, and the power of unity in the face of manipulation. The monarchy's action caused Meghan's sponsorship deals to suffer severe consequences. But will Princess Anne reconsider to spare her nephew's wife from further humiliation, perhaps even offering a second chance? Now let's explore how Princess Anne's unshakable authority changed the game. The rare royal strike. What made this moment so extraordinary was not the volume of words or public statements, it was the sheer rarity of the action itself. Those close to palace affairs emphasized that Princess Anne is not someone who habitually wades into family disputes or intervenes in internal tensions. Her presence in these matters is deliberate, calculated, and far from casual. She does not speak out of impulse or emotion. When she chooses to act, her words and decisions carry an authority that few can match. That very restraint, her ability to observe, analyze, and respond with precision, is exactly why her intervention in this situation was so powerful, so immediately consequential. Insiders familiar with the inner workings of the royal household describe Anne's perspective on the matter as uncompromising. To her, any suggestion of reconciliation or compromise under duress was not simply unwise, it was perilous. Allowing coercion or pressure tactics to take root anywhere near the monarchy, she understood, could set a dangerous precedent, one that might weaken the institution in ways that could reverberate for generations. For Princess Anne, this was never about personal grudges, past conflicts, or matters of sentiment. It was about protecting the crown, its integrity, and its future from manipulation and exploitation. In her eyes, the stakes were far higher than individual personalities. This was about preserving the very foundation of royal authority. Those close to the palace say that once Princess Anne made her stance clear, there was no room for ambiguity or debate. Behind the closed doors of Buckingham Palace and other royal residences, whispers and differing opinions may have lingered. But the moment she drew her line, the discussion ended. Her decision did not merely express disapproval, it demanded respect, commanded attention, and established a framework for action. The implications were immediate and unambiguous. The monarchy would not be coerced, and any attempt to manipulate or pressure its members would be met with firm resistance. Princess Anne's intervention changed everything, turning what threatened to spiral into a prolonged and damaging crisis into a controlled response. By stepping in with her rare but unwavering authority, she immediately stripped away any leverage Meghan might have hoped to use against the royal family. Her decisive stance allowed the palace to move from a cautious, defensive position to a proactive, strategic plan. Every move of the counteroffensive, meticulously coordinated, deliberate, and thorough, was now fully backed by the institution, free from doubt or hesitation. The message was clear: the monarchy would not bend under pressure, and the threat had been neutralized. In short, it wasn't just what Princess Anne said, it was the rare weight of her authority, measured, deliberate, and unwavering. Her calm restraint and sharp insight turned a tense, potentially explosive confrontation into a moment of clear control. Every move she made radiated purpose, sending an unmistakable message. The monarchy would not be intimidated or manipulated. When Princess Anne takes a stand, the institution acts with precision and strength. Her decisive judgment drew a firm line, showing the world that the crown does not waver and never will. So, what do you make of Princess Anne's decisive action? Could it stop anyone from daring to challenge the royal family? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.